So one of the things I'm more curious about these days and less frustrated by is that sometimes I have no idea if you're actually listening to me, because I'll say something, I'll ask you a question, and then I'm just met with complete silence. And I don't know if you're just super zen and reflecting, gonna get back to me, or if you just didn't hear what I said because maybe your hearing's going.
Oh my God. Easy.
But it's like, what, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. And I guess it's kind of apropos that we would have this conversation today, because I think that's something that's been really on my mind of late, in lieu of working with a couple of clients and then getting a real sense that they're not listening.
Uh-huh.
And it's something that's actually quite subtle. So looking for the cues or having an understanding that their mind is elsewhere can at times, I think up until this point, not look very obvious. But now that I'm thinking it, or I'm approaching it from this point of view, of this understanding, I'm seeing how it's quite clear that their mind is wandering, that the mental machinery is kind of keeping them from being present.
Are you deflecting my question?
Probably. Nicely steering it away from me.
Exactly.
I was going to bring it back to me, because I think that what I wanted to say was that I think through my internship I was constantly hearing from my mentors, now are you listening? I really need you to listen to me. And I would see my mentors do this with clients. And to me it seemed like they were all ears. So there's something very subtle in that, in noticing how the mental machinery or the analytical mind kicks in and kind of takes control. And steering it back to me, I can see how I think I became quite well versed in presenting a facade, if you like, where I look like I'm listening, but my mind is turning. And I can see how that can reap havoc in a relationship, because it would have this aura about it that the person is just not present. You might not be able to, maybe you wouldn't say this person isn't listening, but it's just not being present in the relationship. And I think I can see now how, for probably many years in terms of our relationship, how my mind could go elsewhere, and yet I could present myself to you in a way where it may look like I'm listening, and probably drove you crazy, because there'd be times where you'd be looking for an answer or looking for a reaction and nothing was coming forward.
Yes. That kind of gave it away that you weren't listening. It was kind of a clue to me.
Right.
The facade maybe wasn't as good as he thought.
Well, it's just interesting to me now how it's really come into focus for me now, because now actually when I work with clients and I see quite clearly they're not listening, and I don't think I would have been able to see it up until I was exposed to this understanding. It's almost like, you wouldn't be at a party talking to someone and then, or it'd be like me being at a party talking to someone and their mind is like looking around the rooms, like looking for someone more attractive or interesting to talk to, or they're looking at the sky, or they're looking at the fixtures and fittings. It's like, that would be so rude. So I've had the experience lately when I've been interacting with clients even, where I can see that they're not paying attention. They are kind of, it's almost like they're paying attention, but they're not present. And you can see they're not present because they're just the wheels are turning. The analytical mind is just spinning.
So when I would ask you a question, you wouldn't say anything, you'd be off in some other kind of
totally off
world.
In some other world.
Yeah.
It's almost like being a kid having to pay attention in a toy shop that they've just been brought into, because there's all these other things to look at, and I think that's what happens when life gets busy, when we get sped up. Our mind just starts, our analytical mind just kicks in and wants to sort of take control.
But it's so funny because you go quiet, but I go into hyper question mode.
You do, which drives me crazy.
So when your mind gets busy, you go internal.
I do.
And when my mind gets busy, I go external, and I bombard you with questions.
Yeah. And you have I think that just your mental processing speed is so much quicker than mine. So I think you have this uncanny ability to almost do both. It's one or the other with me. I can't talk and process at the same time.
Got it.
I think, well, that's how it comes across. You know, your processing speed to me is so quick. It just seems like it's just constant back and forth. Me, I just really need to reflect on things. And then what's interesting about that is sometimes when I reflect on things, then it's almost like my capacity to articulate what I want to say can't quite catch up, because I think the mental machinery is so much a part of that, the intellect is so much a part of that, that it's kind of stifling. So it's interesting to me to see how our focus is to really slow people down. Because that provides a much better situation for people to actually be present, to actually be in a place where they can, I guess, have their own insight.
Well, when you're saying slow people down, you're talking about having them settle and not be so caught up in their intellectual, fast-paced thinking.
Yeah.
And so in that respect, then when that settles, because that's not our natural state to be in processing intellectually the whole time, when that settles, there's a greater ability to feel the deeper knowing, the intuition, the deeper wisdom that's underneath all of that, and that's constantly there all of the time. And I think that's what feels really beautiful in relationship, where we're connecting in that feeling space.
Yeah.
It feels really lovely in that when we're connecting with each other just from the busy-minded place, it doesn't, the feeling and the warmth and the good feeling that comes from that isn't there.
Yeah.
You can feel kind of brittle and empty. And
yeah. It's almost like you're that person at a party and your attention is elsewhere.
Yeah. And I think that's really easy to do in day-to-day relationships. And that's one of the things that I've noticed as I've personally slowed down and become more present and more in the moment, is I feel like our relationship it's like a new relationship all the time. It doesn't feel like, oh, we've been married for, what is it, how long, do you know? 22 years, something like that. But it's like, it doesn't feel like it's, I mean, I have known you for that time, but it's always fresh and it's always new and it's always a discovery, and I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really been fascinating for me just really, I think this week, I think I feel like I finally had a shift in terms of how I see how that really impacts a relationship or impacts rapport between two people. That you can have a presence about you that can appear that you're listening, but it can seem so subtle, and I can now start to see the subtleties. When you engage with someone, then you're trying to share some experience or trying to teach someone, let's say, and you just see how their mind is just trying to process it. And that's fascinating, because that's where you can see how they're not really going to be able to have a revelation or have an insight or have an aha moment where they'll get to see something new. So, and then to bring that around to our relationship, I can see how, and I know that you struggled early on with feeling like I wasn't present, and I think that would be accurate. And I think there are these moments where you would kind of bombard me with questions, and I would kind of feel interrupted. I would kind of almost feel, don't interrupt me now, I'm having a conversation with my ego. And that's what people do. They're kind of having a conversation with their ego, and yet they're missing that there's something so much more expansive out there, by having, that spark of an idea or having something new come in, that when they slow down, they'll get to see things differently. And yet the ego was like, I'm in control here, you will do what I say, don't listen to them, I've got far more fascinating ways to move forward.
Your ego's a lot more entertaining than my ego is.
I don't know about that. I don't know. I think I've just given into my ego, and in a sense, I've kind of missed a lot of what's going on out there in the big wide world. That's what's so interesting to me.
So now, when I ask you a question you don't answer, I'll know you're having a conversation with yourself in your head.
Yeah, I'm off in ego land.